After decades in the fast paced, high stakes world of the movie industry, Viane traded box office forecasts for something even more impactful, helping people script the next of their lives with clarity and purpose. Now, a sought-after coach and advisor, Mike guides leaders and organizations to reach knee reactions with deliberate, powerful intention. Tonight, we'll uncover what it really takes to pause, choose, and create results that matter on and off the big screen. Welcome to the show, Mike. It's an honor to have you.
Well, thank you for having me today. Um, I love your podcast. It's a privilege to be on it. And thank you for the kind introduction. I'm looking forward to talking about today's topic.
Mm. So, Mike, you have lived in industries where quick reactions are the norm. What did you realize intention was the more powerful approach?
Yeah, I think these days I talk to more and more people who use the line, I was so busy today, but I don't feel like I accomplished anything. And this is problematic both for people who own their own businesses, but also for people that might work for a larger corporation. Um, if we're if we're starting our day, like I like to call it, on our back foot, and all we're doing is reacting to, oh, I have 15 emails that I have to respond to. I have 4 phone calls that I need to return, and you just start putting out little fires when you walk into your business or you walk into your office space, and somebody pulls you aside and said, hey, before your day gets started, I have a little bit of an issue. If all we do is react, we're never going to find the ability to truly move forward. And this could be moving forward personally so that you have the ability to become a better a leader, or the ability to move our business forward. If we're business owners, we have to be able to sit back and recognize that we're being reactive rather than intentional, and then purposely start to set aside time where we are intentional and we're making a difference in our daily lives, both personally and professionally.
100%. And was there a moment when reacting cost you more than you expected?
Yeah, I think the first time that I really woke up to the fact that this was happening earlier in my career was a time where you feel like you've been in an industry for quite some time and you are ready to take on bigger and better challenges, but you're finding that there may be others around you that are better suited for a promotion or for a new position at an upstart company, whatever that might be, because yes, you've been with a particular company or a particular industry for a very long time, but all you've been doing is reacting. So you haven't developed the skill sets and the knowledge base and the connections to truly move forward. So you find that it costs you because others all of a sudden say, yes, I've done this and I've worked on that. And yes, I've presented a workshop, or I've been on a podcast, or, I went and took an MBA class on financing because I was being intentional about trying to make myself better, and they're better positioned. And sometimes, and it happened to me, I think there are too many people that wake up and realize, outside of just maybe having some organizational skills and people skills, too many years have gone by now and they're not ready to take the next step.
Because sometimes speed can be the enemy of wisdom.
Oh, it's so true. I'm so glad that you said that. I love to talk to people about pace. Pace is so important. And In particular, I've been talking to some young professionals lately because we live in an instant gratification society right now, right? So, especially the younger generation, everything that they've ever wanted has sort of been at their fingertips. If you want to do something banking, you just log onto your phone and you transfer money, or you fill out a loan application on your phone. If you want food, you go to your phone; it's at your desk in 20 minutes. Uh, if you want an Uber ride, whatever it might be, it's this instant gratification. But there are two things that I have really been able to identify that are never and will never be instant gratification. And one is job satisfaction, and two is meaningful and lasting relationships. Those take time, and we need to very intentionally pace ourselves and realize it's not a sprint to the top. I find that young professionals just want to try to get promotions. Some of it's financially based, but I think a lot of it is just I want to take on a new role. I want to take on a new responsibility where I'm overseeing people, but they want it too fast. And it was very timely this morning that I went on to LinkedIn and I read a post and I printed the post because it was so meaningful. And it talked about the journeys of so many people. And it basically says this: there will always be another mountain to climb. There will always be an uphill battle. Sometimes you win and sometimes you will lose, but it is not about speed. Um, it she says here on this post, it's not about how fast we get to the top or what's waiting when we arrive. It's about how we show up during that climb, how we stay focused when that path feels unclear, and choosing resilience even when things seem not clear, and then learning from every stumble along the way. So, again, I'll just sum it up. Rather than feeling like we need to sprint to the top and that's what's going to make us successful, let's slow down. Let's grow along the way. Let's be intentional about making connections with people inside and outside of our companies. And that means making connections with people in different departments and different industries so we have a broader sense of the business industry and what people do and what affects them and makes them successful. And if we can embrace that journey along the way and show up as our best self, we end up at the top of that mountain one day, but we end up there as a better person with more competency, with more resiliency, with more character and more consistency. And that is so important in this world.
Absolutely. And replay reaction with intention sounds simple, but in the heat of the moment, it can be impossible. How do you coach people to bridge that gap?
I think we have to, it starts with recognizing your goals. And it's not it's not necessarily just a huge goal. There are smaller goals along the way. But if your goal is to ultimately be the CEO of your company, or if your goal is to open up your own business, there are all these smaller goals along the way that help you get to that larger goal. And so when we recognize that, then we can be intentional about what's meaningful that moves us closer to each one of those goals, both our long-term results-based goal, but also our shorter term goals that allow us to take steps towards that. And once you understand what those goals are, you can start to very intentionally write yourself lists. And I think it's important to put this down on paper that says, and you can do this at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, but just remind yourself of what your short term or your longer term goals are, and then write one, two, or three very intentional actions that you can take in that day that will move you closer to that goal. And when you write those down and you conquer those, I always say it's not a to-do list. To-do lists are just smaller tasks that make us feel productive, but they're really not moving us closer to our goals. If you want to be a business owner, one of the intentional acts you might take each day is you want to call a real estate agent and start to explore lease opportunities and look at what kind of space is available in the area that you want to open your business. So many of us just have this in our mind, but we never do it. And we wake up 9 months later and say, yeah, I want to do this, but I haven't gotten any closer. But one day you call a real estate agent. One day you call and you meet with a banker so you understand what your financial readiness is. One day you sign up for a class that you think is going to get you closer to that goal, right? One day as you go visit similar businesses in that area to kind of understand how they run their business and what the market demand might be, how you can be better. But if we just go through our day reacting to phone calls and emails and putting out fires and going in and out of meetings, we wake up a year later, 2 years later, and we're no closer to those goals. So whatever your goals may be, and by the way, they can be personal goals. They don't always have to be business related. They could be personal, but you need to take intentional action each day, even if it's just a very small step towards getting closer to those goals. And what I love to say is, it doesn't matter how small the step is, if it moves you forward, even one step at a time, you're getting closer to achieving your goals and your aspirations because you're being intentional about it. That they don't have to be these huge goals where people feel like they conquered the world in 1 week. Be intentional, think about pace. We can take this one step at a time, and eventually you are going to get there.
Mm. It's fascinating how just breath and a beat can change the entire outcome.
That's a very good question. Um, Sometimes it can be a combination, but here's something from the mindset side of things. You cannot wait for motivation to create action. And I think a lot of us might be able to relate to this when it comes to working out at the gym or just doing some sort of exercise, whether that's taking walks, being a runner, maybe going to the gym and doing weight training, whatever it might be. If you say to yourself, I'm just not motivated to go to the gym, you'll find that you just keep pushing off going to the gym. What creates motivation is action. And so if you take action, if you just go to the gym, you find that that action creates the motivation that you need to move forward. So, very important mindset point. Action creates motivation. It's not the reverse. Don't sit back and wait to be motivated. Start to do things. Now let's flip that back to the other side on tools. The tool that I talked to you about creating 1 to 3 daily intentional actions that you can take, the actual skill set and the discipline to each and every day write down your long-term and short-term goals, and then 1 to 3 actions that would move you closer. That is a tool that you need to take action. But then the action creates the motivation and the mindset to get you closer to there. So you see how the two really come together, and it's essential to have both. But if you don't, I found this with so many clients, if you don't have the discipline to get up and write down what you need to do that day. I actually bought a calendar, and it was accidental, but my calendar where I write out my schedule for each day, every day of the week, it has on each day today's top 3 actions. And then underneath that, it has a to-do list. And then it gives an area for notes. It gives an area for gratitude. But I just find that I write down my top 3 actions that I need to be intentional with. And then I don't kid myself. Sometimes I do have smaller to-do lists, like I need to go to the dry cleaners, which I actually need to do today. And I just reminded myself. But when you can every day have the discipline to write down those actions, you will follow through with them. When we just say, yeah, I don't need to write it down, you're going to fall back into a reactionary habit and you're going to realize, yeah, I've been telling myself all week I was going to do this and I never had the chance to get around to it. And we're going to allow busyness to get in the way of being productive. We need to flip that around. Make sure you're being productive. Yeah, later in the day, you can let some busyness get in the way, but each day we need to start with the intention to be productive and move ourselves closer to our goals.
It's fascinating how just a breath and a beat can change the entire outcome.
Absolutely. And it's it's just in those very, very small actions that can really change the outcome of who you are. When you take these small steps, I always say you'll wake up in 90 days and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. I always use 90 days because it's sort of proven that if you want to create a habit like writing down these intentional actions to take every day, if you want to get rid of a habit, a bad habit that you want to exhaust, it takes about 90 days to get rid of or create a new habit. So I always like to tell people, think about things in 90-day sprints. You, in 90 days, if you're a little bit closer to where you want to be, and then another 90 days and another 90 days, by the time you get to the end of a calendar year, you will be amazed at how much better you feel about yourself and how much you've accomplished along the way. And it's incredibly empowering, but it does take the discipline and the stamina to be able to say, I'm going to do this day in and day out, and I'm not going to let busyness get in the way of allowing me to achieve what I want to achieve.
That's amazing. And you made a huge midlife career shift. How did intention shape that decision and the navigated the transition?
It really is all about intention when you're doing something like that. One of the focuses I have on coaching right now is working with people who want to make the transition, either a career shift or the ability to say, you know what, I've always wanted to start my own business. Um, that could be something like coaching, or it could be something like, I want to go open my own coffee shop. Sometimes it's just a career shift of, I've been in this job for 30 years and I want to take on, I still want to go work for another big company, but I want to take the shift. It all starts with intention, because I've talked to too many people who say, I've been thinking and saying this for 3 years. I've always wanted to do this, but I've never known how. And it's not necessarily that they didn't know how. It's just that they never stopped and thought about the steps that they need to take in order to make that change. And it takes the intentional action. So for me, I needed to say to myself, yes, my days are incredibly busy and I could work 12 hours a day, but I made time each and every day to be able to do something that got me closer to making that mid career change so that I could follow my passion, so that I could find more fulfillment in each and every day. And then I no longer felt stuck where I was. Part of that is we need to embrace going into what is a little bit of discomfort. When you make a change, it's in our brain and our mindset that says, wow, this isn't the normal comfort of just getting up, showering, going to work, dealing with some issues, and then coming home, having dinner, and going to bed. We're going to face some discomfort. But as we set up the intentionality of getting through that discomfort, you know what it does? It expands our comfort zone, and we become more comfortable with, wow, now I know what I'm doing. Now I know what it takes to make that next step. And by doing these intentional actions each day, making phone calls, meeting people, um, learning more about truly and honestly what you need to do to start your own business, to make that career shift, to maybe meet somebody who can introduce you to somebody who's doing the same thing. That is what it takes to be able to move the small steps. It didn't happen overnight to me. I want to make that clear. I didn't just leave my job on a Friday and start a new career on a Monday. It takes time so that we can assess your readiness both financially and mentally, and do you have the preparedness to actually do this. It doesn't have You don't have to leave your job on a Friday and start a new business on a Monday. Give yourself the proper steps. Give yourself the preparedness that you need so that when you do tell your company, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice because I'm starting my own business or I'm going to a new job in a new industry, you're ready and able to do that. And it's with intention that we allow ourselves to be able to do that.
And that leap speaks to anyone who's ever wondered if it's too late to rewrite their story.
That's right. And the answer is it's not. And if you have your passion, I shared I shared this idea with somebody that I was talking to about an hour ago. And there's a book called Level Up that was written by Rob Dial. And I actually heard this phrase from Rob Dial. I'll give him credit, but I love it. He talked about how if your why is strong enough, your how will reveal itself. Some people figure, like, I just don't know how to do this. If you have the passion to do it and the discipline to be intentional, it's never, ever too late. And I just love that concept of if your why is strong enough, your how will reveal itself. When we think about professional athletes, there are so many athletes that when interviewed, they will say, I grew up in a single parent household, and my mom had to work 4 jobs, and we didn't have any money. And my mom did everything she can, but I just knew I wanted to do better, and I wanted to be able to be a better person who had more financial freedom. You hear more of their stories because their why was so strong. They grew up in a very difficult situation, and that could be both, going through certain traumas or just having financial strains that gave them their why. And then their why led to they figured out how to get from where they were to being a professional athlete, or from where they were to being a business owner or a lawyer. There's a boys and girls club here in Los Angeles that is an incredible place for young kids. It's in Boyle Heights, and it's called the Variety Boys and Girls Club. And these kids go there because they know that their neighborhood and their lives are challenging. And the club gives them the ability to figure out their why and their how. And when I see the amount of kids that come out of here and go to college and become lawyers and become doctors and become representatives for their community, it's inspirational to watch these kids make their steps. They're doing it very young in their lives, but going back to what you said, you can figure this out at your halfway point, at your 3/4 way point. You just have to be intentional about wanting to do it. And then together we can find the power to do it.
100%. So Mike's journey proves that intention isn't about slowing life down. It's about taking the wheel back. Replacing reaction with intention can transform not just how you lead, but how you live. Your next move doesn't have to be a reflex. It can be a choice. Make
Well, thank you for having me. Hopefully, we were able to inspire some listeners. I always say, even if there's one person listen to that this made a difference for, um, that's why we're on this podcast. And if anybody ever needs any specific guidance on tools and tips so we can get more into the details, I'm always happy to have people reach out to me and I can spend more time with them and really try to help them put them on the right path forward.